Hi, everybody, and welcome to our special Coaches Corner edition of the Dr. Z and J-Dub podcast. J.W. Stewart, along with our UNH AD, Dr. Z, Shane Zankin. Our guest in our Coaches Corner is Brian Quinn, who's our men's soccer coach at the University of New Haven. Dr. Z, what can you tell us about BQ?
You know, I think our viewers are really going to enjoy this. My favorite thing about Coach Quinn, other than just he's got a natural personality that's easy to get along with and enjoy being around. He's got years of experience and professional history in the game that he has brought to UNH. You can see it in the program as he builds it. And I really think we have a bright future with UNH men's soccer because of him.
Yeah, BQ has been our men's soccer coach since February of 2019, but he's been part of Connecticut soccer for years and years and years. And he'll tell us that story as we bring him out from the green room to join us here on our Coaches Corner special episode of the Dr. Z and J-Dub podcast. We know BQ actually was at our rival for a long time, Southern Connecticut. So we look forward to that. So Brian has been, like I said, he's done everything. He's coached in college. Obviously, he's with us now, and you know he's been at all levels of youth soccer. And BQ, thanks for joining us here on our special Coaches Corner episode. How are you?
It's my pleasure. I'm doing well, thanks.
We half expected you to come out like with Animal House with the pencils hanging out.
You know, I only had pens, and I didn't want to take any chances with the COVID stuffing about my nose, so
that's
passed.
That's smart. So I mentioned that you have done just about everything when it comes to soccer, especially here in the state of Connecticut. Tell us about your path. How did you end up here at UNH?
Wow. Well, I guess it's a roundabout way, you know, how I got to Connecticut. And originally that was, you know, I grew up in the Garden State of New Jersey. Didn't start playing until my mid-teens, you know, in any kind of organized fashion. So, I wasn't heavily recruited, you know, coming out of high school. But I saw, you know, the way that you got soccer information back in the dark ages before we had the internet, and was this publication called Soccer America. And just by chance, you know, I was reading Soccer America one day and read an article about this program in Connecticut at Southern Connecticut State University that was being run by this really well-known nationally coach, Bob Ukrainian. So I took an interest in it and, you know, sent him a letter. He wrote back and we arranged a visit. And long story short, I ended up going to school there, getting my undergraduate and my master's degrees. And then after graduating, kind of got into the coaching field as a result of contact with him and Ray Reed, who's now the head coach up at UConn. So, you know, through those guys, you know, made the connection into coaching, which wasn't my original plan. Originally, I was going to be an athletic director or an athletic trainer. So they kind of convinced me that coaching was a good path for me based on what they knew about me, and it's worked well. And from there, jumped on, went to Boston University. Worked for 5 years with Neil Roberts up there, who's another Southern Connecticut alum, just retired a couple of years ago, and spent some time with him, and then had the opportunity to come back and get back to Connecticut. Was a great move for my family at the time because my wife and I had a young family, and she was still teaching in Connecticut. So made the move to UB and did that for a while, and then had a little break where I went full-time into the youth soccer scene. And then this opportunity arose, and it was something that really excited me. So that's the road. Coming in for the interview and meeting the people here. You know, I'd already known David Fogno, but getting to meet, you know, the administration and some of the other people really made it feel like a warm environment. And it was something that I was excited about based on what I had seen, you know, on the research part of it, and then what I got to know from the people while I was here. So that's my journey to get to Charger Nation.
That's a lot of good stuff, a lot of benchmarks you know, and Foggy, you know, David Fogno, I almost have to stop and think who that is because I never caught anything with Foggy, is another soccer player and our current strength coach and played at Southern. And I like to give Foggy a lot of I mess with him a lot about that. I don't mess with Coach Quinn as much about it because we're borrowing from the history and tradition they came from. And I think it bodes well for our program as we build this into the future.
Yeah, we're hoping to bring, you know, whatever we can.
Yeah, Brian, you certainly were familiar with the University of New Haven, having played and coached at Southern, which of course is UNH's biggest rival. When you coach there as an assistant coach, you won 3 national titles with the Owls. They're a D2 powerhouse, have been for a long time, won in 87, 90, and 92. So with your long, proud history with Southern, now you come here. What's that been like, and what have some of these Southern alums said to you when you've gotten here?
Yeah, I've gotten Judas a few times, and those sorts of things. I don't get invited to the athletic department Christmas party anymore. That's a thing of the past. But no, if I'm being honest, some of the people that are there have been friends for a very long time. So whenever you get to see them, it's great to see your people that you've known so long and know so well, and getting to spend time with them is still good. But anytime you step on the field, against them, you're full bore into, kicking their butts and making sure that you win the game. So there's no keeping the handbrake on, whenever you get into a competitive situation with them. And whether that's on the field or whether that's on the recruiting front, it's no holds barred.
Yeah, I think, J-Dub, for the people in who are fans and don't really understand how it works in college athletics, you have your rivals, and it's intense when you're on the field. But if someone's been really good at something and they're your rival, you have no problem begging, borrowing, and stealing from them. And I've been a part of that at previous institutions. Coach Quinn's a part of that now. And once you put on the colors of the school, the blue and gold of UNH, that's family, and that's the way you go. And it really makes it fun. If you watch, professional soccer, if you watch NFL, NBA, all the pros, that happens all the time. And you're always trying to find the best coaches from the other places and get them to your program.
Yeah, for sure. And the other thing I would say is that there's a massive amount of respect, that I have for people that I've borrowed from over the years, and it's great to maintain those relationships even though you're competing against each other.
So the moral of the story is, if you can't beat them, hire them. Right?
I like that. And it's worked for us, Jay.
Yeah. Well, I hadn't thought of it that way, but yeah, that's a good point.
BQ, that rivalry was so one-sided. Right? Southern Connecticut had dominated UNH in men's soccer for a long time. It wasn't until last year, it was last October 9th, that the Chargers finally beat the Owls for the first time since 1984 on the soccer pitch. What was that moment like for you and the team?
Yeah, that was pretty cool. And just knowing the way that the game went, we started well, and we'd done a decent job scouting them. I was already, familiar with some of the players in the program and strengths and weaknesses, so that I think that might have helped a little bit. But if you were there at the game and you watched the game, there was times, I think, we jumped out to a 2-0 lead, but there was a couple of moments in the second half where they broke us down and got pretty good looks at the goal. And our goalkeeper, Stefano LaRusso, he came up with a couple of great saves to keep the score where it was. And, very easily, get a little bit of a, break, in their favor instead of our favor. It could have turned out, maybe a little bit differently. So it was a great competitive game. It was a great atmosphere, for the fans that were there. And for sure, the guys were pretty pumped. And then somebody pointed out to me, one of my friends that I played with at Southern, he said, "Do you realize the last time that University of New Haven beat Southern, you were actually playing for Southern?" And it dawned on me. I was like, "Oh yeah, geez, I hadn't thought about that."
Wow.
And I still remember the game, very, very vividly. And it was a crazy game. It was played, well, Della Camera is now, used to be a grass field that became very muddy. And it was a situation where, somebody went to pass a ball back to the goalkeeper and it just got stuck in the mud. And a guy named Joshua Phillips ran in, stole the ball, and I think dribbled around the goalkeeper and scored. And we lost the game 1-0.
Oh, wow. Coach, tell us, more than any team we have here, and it's the nature of your sport, you blend American and international players really well. Mm-hmm. And kind of talk to us about how recruiting internationally works and how you identify those young men and how that you then blend them here. And I think that's a really interesting aspect to your game.
Okay. Well, the thing about the sport is it is kind of universal. You know, they play it all over the world. So there's some aspects of the game that just connect, no matter what your culture is. Now, regionally, you know, even nationally, the game is a little bit different. It's played a little bit differently, you know, in Holland than it's played in Italy. It's played, you know, differently in England than it's played in Spain, and, you know, even South America and, you know, African countries. So there's parts that connect, and then there's also parts that are, you know, culturally very different in these guys' soccer upbringing. So part of it is just kind of getting all of those guys on the same page is the tricky part. So you start very, very basic, you know, simple thing that we dwell on constantly, but really hammer home on, you know, the first few days of preseason is as simple as what are we doing when we're passing the ball to each other? You know, how are we communicating? You know, what does the timing on that look like? You know, what is the receiver doing so the passer knows that's, you know, it's the right moment and he really wants the ball? You know, little basic things like that. So you got to start, you know, slow and make sure that the fundamental things, the fact that these, you know, different cultures are all trying to come together and you know, make it work. So that's the tricky part of coaching them. You know what your ideal, you know, game model looks like and how you want to play the game and style of play. So when you do your recruiting, whether they're technical qualities or physical qualities, or, you know, could be personality, you know, qualities that you're going to identify, and then you go to work, you know, with your network. So, you know, maybe down the road we'll have this budget that allows us to, you know, hop on planes and fly, you know, wherever we need to go see a player. But right now you're relying on networks of, you know, contacts in different countries and, you know, with different organizations. That can kind of bring you players with those qualities and those traits that you're really looking for. And it's not always easy, you know, and sometimes you make mistakes, you know, as a result of it. But, you know, for the most part, what you have coming in is a pretty good end product usually. And the other thing that I think really works in your favor is that kids are very much the same all over the world. Even though they grow up in different corners and different places and different cultures, you know, they have very, very similar problems. You know, they fight with their parents, you know, they break up with their girlfriends, you know, they have trouble in school. And, you know, that's the part that works in your favor, is that basically kids are kids.
Yeah. I got to be a part of Coach Quinn's Zoom call sometime this summer or late spring, and you know, all the kids had been sent home. And what struck me was, you know, we were talking to kids, if I remember right, you know, all around the tri-state area, but also one young man was out in Arizona. And then we had individuals in Portugal, Spain, Italy. I may be leaving one or two out, and, you know, they're just hanging out in their bedrooms, you know, chewing the fat with you and me. And you had some fun questions for them and brought them out, and we all participated. And then I got a heck of an education when you asked something about professional soccer and what teams they followed. And heck, I'd never heard of some of them. I'm a football guy, you know, and you know, me being what I do know about soccer is MLS related, which I know in your world, that's not the biggest of the leagues out there.
No, it's not. It's not. So yeah, that's definitely an eye opener for you, I'm sure. So everybody has their club. Everybody has their favorite player. Everybody has their favorite club. So yeah, that was one of the fun things that we did was wear your favorite team's jersey. So it was okay, who was going to pop up, and you know, we even went as far as, you know, I think one guy had a New England Patriots shirt on. You know, one of the guys from Massachusetts. So. Yeah, that was a fun thing that we did that day, and that makes the group work a little bit better too, because you have those little rivalries of, you know, the guys that support Liverpool and the guys that support Manchester United, which are, you know, rivals in the English Premier League, or the guys that support Real Madrid and the guys that support Barcelona in Spain. You know, they go at it a little bit back and forth. Makes for a little bit more jovial conversations, I guess.
Yeah.
Coach, you mentioned, you know, attracting the talent that we can here to UNH. How is recruiting going this year?
it went very well. I mean, crazy as it seems. I mean, basically, we didn't have anything to do but recruit. You know, once we did the shutdown, you know, we weren't running practices. You know, we weren't planning games and strategies and things like that. So we were able to devote 100% of our attention to it. But yeah, it went surprisingly well. I think the thing that worked in our favor was we were able to get in our ID clinics prior to the shutdown. So the course of the last year, during the past summer, we got the ID clinics in, and it was pretty clear the guys that we wanted and we went after. So did we get everybody we wanted? No, absolutely not. But we did get, you know, good quality and strengthened in a number of the positions that we felt we needed to strengthen in, and then also added to our depth. So that aspect of it worked well. This year it's going to be, you know, a little bit of a different situation because now we didn't have that summer. You know, we were able to get out and get on the road and ID because of the dead period that the NCAA had in place. So we're watching a lot more video and, you know, going off guys maybe that we saw 2 years ago. And then, you know, it's kind of a wait and see mode, you know, if we're going to be able to get guys on campus for ID clinics or not. You know, it kind of depends on how things progress with the pandemic here.
Coach, a final question to you. What is your message to all the men's soccer alum who are watching this episode?
Yeah, you know, that was one thing I think too, that it's good you bring that up, that the pandemic really, you know, put a kibosh on that because, you know, we wanted to get alumni games going and, you know, start reaching out and making contacts with those people. You know, that was one of the goals for 2020, and that kind of got put on the back burner, unfortunately, in favor of the recruiting. But, you know, that's something that we want to try and really push, you know, on the agenda, you know, moving forward here, is to start getting more and more of the alums, you know, back. A number of them that are local, you know, still come and catch games. You know, I don't think there's too many games I look back over my shoulder and I don't see Carl Babb standing at the top of the steps behind the field. And he's a diamond, you know, but, you know, we need 50, we need 100 Carl Babbs, you know. And that being said, there's really only one Carl Babb, because any of you people that know him, you know what a special and unique guy, you know, he is. But for sure, you know, there's others out there, you know, that we want to keep coming. Steven Sasso, I see him quite a bit at the games. I want to get Roberto Taylor, you know, back in the loop, you know, as soon as possible. And, you know, Dr. Joe Macknick, if I can talk him out of leaving, you know, his beautiful home in South Carolina and coming up, you know, I want to get Dr. Joe back, who's a longtime friend. So yeah, get you guys back in as much as possible and start, you know, getting to know you guys better.
The door is always open, right, BQ? We want as many of our alums to come back as possible and
right.
And do whatever they can.
Even if they're overseas, you know, we want the McCormicks and you know, the Rob Palmers. We want those guys back as well.
Well, before you know it, Dr. Z will green light your trips overseas, and you'll be able to go see some of those guys.
Hey, you know, the frequent flyer miles are great too when you do that stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
That's Brian Quinn, our men's soccer coach. BQ, thanks for joining us here on our special Coach's Corner episode of the Dr. Z and J Dub podcast.
Well, thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks, Coach.
Yep. We'll see BQ around campus real soon. And Dr. Z, if you can, in a perfect world, if you green light things and you could travel with BQ overseas to another country, which one would you pick?
You know, how fun would that be? I've always just historically been partial to Italy. You know, I would start there and branch out, but that would be my first choice. Instead, I just try to eat all the Italian food I can here in New Haven. You know.
Yep. Real quick, Dr. Z, BQ he's a great person to have in our program, and certainly he wants our alums to be involved and is real big into that outreach.
You know, I think what they saw today is we have a real professional here who's been there, done that, and we all get behind him, and I think we'll see real fruit for his and our labor in the years to come.
Thanks to Brian Quinn, our men's soccer coach here at UNH, for being part of this Coach's Corner episode of the Dr. Z and J Dub podcast.